Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here on day 2 of the Affordability Summit. Again, good morning, and welcome to Stout. Is there anyone here who was not here yesterday? Anyone? Okay, welcome. I see a couple hands. Is anyone here that has never been to the summit before? New folks. Okay, not as many as I thought. Maybe they're all here yesterday. Who has been here more than 5 times? Yeah, okay, so this is our 9th iteration of the Effordability Summit, so there's some tried and true supporters. That's great. I'm glad to see it. My name is Roxanne Bukowski, and I'm the library director here at Stout. And I'm pleased to welcome you to Stout on behalf of Chancellor Catherine Frank. As you may know, UW-Stout is one of 13 universities in the University of Wisconsin, and it's Wisconsin's only Polytechnic institution. I would like to start out with a couple thank yous, and then I'll introduce our keynote speaker. First and foremost, a huge thanks goes to the Thompson Center. The Thompson Center is our major sponsor of this event, and the Thompson Center is delighted to be able to sponsor today's event and partner with UW-Stout. And I'm so grateful that we have also a partnership with the Continuing Eds and Conferences unit on our campus. And I want to give a special shout out to Amber Robinson for being the conference chair. She is the backbone of this event, and it would not run without her. I would also like to give a special shout out to some of the staff at the Thompson Center, Alex, Ruth, and Lily. Thank you again for your support of this event. This is about, I think, the 3rd or 4th year we've received support from the Thompson Center. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with the Thompson Center, let me clue you in. The Thompson Center was established to follow in the steps of Governor Tommy Thompson, who proudly worked with colleagues on both sides of the aisle to advance the public good. The Thompson Center seeks to carry on Governor Thompson's legacy by informing and inspiring current and future public leaders, fostering leadership skills, and promoting effective public leadership. They work to further these goals by offering public events, funding research and scholarships, honoring exemplary leaders with the Distinguished Public Leadership Award, and conducting other activities across all UW campuses. All events are free and open to the public. For more information on their upcoming events, grant opportunities, other aspects of the center, please visit the Thompson Center website. Thank you again to the Thompson Center. We couldn't do this without you. All right, moving on. I'm pleased to be able to welcome our keynote speaker for the 2026 Affordability Summit. Dr. Sarah Hansen brings a rich background as an educator and open education leader. She holds a PhD in education, curriculum, and instruction from the University of Minnesota and has taught across K-12 and higher education. Dr. Hansen is the Assistant Director of Open Education Innovation at MIT OpenLearning, where she leads programs to harness the power of open praxis to democratize knowledge. Dr. Hansen is deeply connected to MIT OpenCourseWare, one of the foundational and widely recognized open education initiatives worldwide. She hosts Chalk Radio, MIT's OpenCourseWare premier podcast for open learners, educators, and advocates. In today's keynote, Upholding Knowledge as a Public Good, Dr. Hansen will challenge us to think about open education as transformative and demanding work. She'll share strategies used by MIT OpenCourseWare to sustain long-term commitments to openness in complex institutional environments. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Sarah Hansen.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Roxanne. It's such an honor to be with you today. I love this conference. I've attended before. So now I get to have a conversation with you, which is wonderful. So why me? You're probably wondering why I, in particular, am standing in front of you today. And when I heard that your keynote was by Sal Khan last year, I was also wondering the same thing. I am not famous. I'm not an ed tech inventor. I'm just your neighbor. I live an hour away from here. And prior to working at MIT, I was a kindergarten teacher, first grade teacher, third grade teacher, wiping tables and making sure kids got on the right bus. And then I taught teachers how to be teachers at University of Minnesota and at St. Catherine University in St. Paul. So teachers and educators are where my heart is. So I'm not famous, but at MIT, I turn the crank of open education behind the scenes to keep open going every day. And I think that that's what a lot of you do. And so in that sense, I'm really glad that we get to share the spotlight today. And the discussion that I hope to have with you will be based on real practices. So they're not earth-shattering. They're probably not even social media worthy, so you can just like close LinkedIn right now. But it's okay because they're real, and this is what we do in our everyday work. Also, as you may have guessed, I work remotely for MIT as of a year and a half ago, so I don't often get to see colleagues in 3D, so this is particularly exciting for me. So thank you for having me. Throughout today, I invite you to contribute to a Padlet that I made. I'm going to ask you questions based on the strategies that I'm sharing so that I can get your thoughts and other people in the room can get your thoughts, because this is the knowledge base. We are the knowledge base. You can access it through the QR code that you are hopefully seeing on the screen or through the link. And if you don't get it now, no worries. I'm going to show this several times throughout the presentation. So let's get started. And I'd like to start with 3 learner stories, because learners are the reason that we're all here. They're our why. The first story is about Anna. Anna was a college student in Serbia, and as a college student, she used open educational resources to learn computer programming, a subject that her college didn't teach at the time. Using open educational resources and to learn programming led her to become a computer scientist. And now she studies the democratization of artificial intelligence, a subject that impacts all of us in important ways right now. So to me, it's pretty amazing what open can catalyze. My second story is about Sujud. Sujud grew up in Sudan. As a university student, she used open educational resources to help understand her first coding class. She then experienced disruption due to civil war in Sudan, and yet she found open pathways to becoming a data scientist. She's still on that pathway, and after she can return home, she wants to use her knowledge to help rebuild her country. So again, open is catalyzing amazing things in the world. And I'm sure you have stories like this too from your own students. The last one I want to share is from Tomas. Tomas is from Chile, and he used open educational resources to learn about pharmacology. And then he did a school innovation grant with peers to develop first aid kits for students attending those schools that leverage phytopharmaceuticals to create these first aid kits. So in other words, how to use plants to solve medical issues. And this had, an important impact on the students attending those schools. So again, open education is doing powerful things. What do all of these stories have in common? Well, to me, they're individual learners leveraging open education to benefit not only themselves, but others as well. But what does this mean? What implications does it have besides just really good stories? It's actually really profound, because it means that open education democratizes knowledge. It makes knowledge available to all and buildable by all. which changes the lives of not only individuals, but has the potential to benefit society as a whole. So when you are engaging with open education, you are doing something transformative, something really big. And you might not realize the impact that you're having when you swap a commercial textbook for an open textbook, or when you make a LibGuide for faculty and students about OER, but I want to remind you or tell you for the first time, hopefully not for the first time, that you're doing work that really matters out in the world. You're actually upholding knowledge as a public good, which is essential for democratizing knowledge and transforming society. What do I mean by a public good? This is a term we sort of throw around a lot. But public goods, by definition, are non-rivalrous, meaning that your enjoyment of the resource doesn't impact my enjoyment of the resource. And Peter Suber, who wrote Knowledge Unbound, and Joseph Stiglitz, who is a Nobel laureate and former senior vice president and chief economist of the World Bank, they've both pointed to Thomas Jefferson, who used the candle analogy. Jefferson said, "He who receives an idea from me receives instruction without lessening mine, as he who lights his taper at mine receives light without darkening mine." In other words, we don't have to compete with each other to enjoy the resources and to benefit from them. The other component of public goods is that they're non-excludable. You can't keep other people from enjoying them. So Suber uses the example of air. You can't really keep people from breathing air under normal circumstances. And he writes, "We can burn books, but not all knowledge is from books." This is true. We can raise the barriers to knowledge through prices or punishments, but that only creates exceptions for some people or some knowledge. When knowledge is available to people able to learn it from books, nature, friends, teachers, or their own senses and experiences, attempts to stop them from learning it are generally unavailing. I think we all know this in our real lives. If you want to learn something, you're probably going to go to YouTube and learn it, and no one's going to stop you, right? So knowledge as a public good, Stiglitz argues, is important for economic development. But I would argue, and probably lots of you would argue, that it's also important to thrive personally and for the betterment of society. And I think we could see that from the examples that I shared at the beginning with the learner stories. And I know you have lots of examples too. And this is where you and we come in. Because if you think about the digital revolution, it's also made knowledge delivery non-rivalrous. I had to stop and think about this for a minute. So I'm just going to give you a second. What does it mean when we make the delivery of knowledge also non-rivalrous? So here's a quote from Suber. "All texts were rivalrous before the digital age. This may be the deepest transformation wrought by the digital revolution. For the first time in the history of writing, we can record our non-rivalrous knowledge without turning it into rivalrous material." So open educational resources, through their very nature, their open license, and the fact that they're digitally available, makes now knowledge non-rivalrous. And this is a major transformation in democratizing knowledge, and you, through your work, are driving it forward. And I include the "and" because there are usually some very positive people, and I want to encourage you. Doing this kind of work is not easy all the time, right? All of us know this. We encounter numerous challenges. I'll name a few of them just so you can feel seen. Isolation is often a common problem. Often OER librarians might be the only ones of their kind on their campus, which makes doing this work very challenging. Anyone relate to that or know someone who can relate to that? No? Well, we should all move to Wisconsin then. That's amazing. Okay, there's often a lack of funding to fund open projects, and actually open is not free. It's free to the people receiving it, but the labor and time to produce the open educational resources is not free. Updating OER is also a challenge. I was working with a community college faculty who said, I will never take on an OER project unless I have a team, because it is like a multi-year commitment to keeping them updated. I thought that was pretty profound and true. And also, discovery of OER can be a challenge because they're distributed across many repositories, and often metadata is not consistent across that. Is anyone feeling a little thwarted? Yeah, maybe. Well, you have your raspberry scone, so maybe you're feeling like pretty good right now. But sometimes I feel thwarted by this, and there are a few more mountains that you might be climbing. The challenge of like, what counts as open? Is it only open textbooks? Is it ancillary resources? How flexible are we with our understanding of open? Is it only like the orthodox understanding of licensure? Are we flexible? Is free open enough? These are like dicey conversations. That can be a challenge. And finally, not finally, there are many more, but the last one I'll share with you is a lack of a clearly defined way to assess the quality of OER. And spoiler alert, there is a cohort of institutions working on this out of Maricopa County Community College District. They're putting together a rubric for how to assess OER broadly. So stay tuned for that. So today I want to share how MIT OpenCourseWare, how our team sustains our commitment to open in the context of these vast challenges. And this is particularly meaningful for me because on April 4th, on Saturday, OpenCourseWare celebrated its 25th anniversary of being open. Yeah, so I hope that you'll find ideas in this talk that might help you and your team, and I hope to learn from you so I can take them back to my team and sort of sustain their commitment for the next 25 years. But before I share the how, I'll share the what. Has anyone ever heard of MIT OpenCourseWare before? Cool, awesome, great. If you haven't heard, I'm really excited to be the one to share it with you for the first time. At its core, OpenCourseWare is a collection of openly licensed teaching materials from across the MIT curriculum. We have things like lecture videos, lecture notes, readings, discussion prompts. We also have content from project-based classes, discussions, and seminars. It's a really incredible resource. Who uses it? Independent learners, educators, and students all access our materials. 44% of our users are lifelong learners, which is, side note, growing increasingly important when we think about workforce learning and upskilling for the future. And about 56% are associated with various educational institutions. We have a global reach. Most of our users are in India and the US, so English-speaking countries. Translation is on our mind, for sure. We've had, over our lifetime, 230 million website users and 500 million total learners. And per month, we get about 1 million website users. That's a lot of potential learning and a lot of potential transformation of society, which is why I come to work every day. But how do we do the work? How do we keep going in the context of the challenges that I shared? Well, I put a photo up that I hope will give you some clues. It is a picture of a wall in our office that shows user feedback and learner stories. And there's also a Star Wars figure, a Mandalorian, I am told, holding an OCW pen. And I hope you're feeling a little bit curious about how this relates to the open work we do. Okay, here we go. The first strategy that we lean on a lot is to remember what drives us, and in particular, our origin story. And what do I mean by that? Well, this is Shigeru Miyagawa. He is a professor of linguistics at MIT, and he was part of the faculty committee that conceptualized the idea for OpenCourseWare 25 years ago. I interviewed Shigeru several years ago, and he told me his version of the origin story. He said, back then, the president of MIT called together a committee, and they worked over several months. And they had a consultant, and they ran mathematical models, and they were trying to figure out how to play in the e-learning space. Remember, this was like the dot-com era. And they ran all the models, and they're like, this doesn't seem like it's going to be very profitable. It wasn't a hockey stick. It was just like, they weren't going to make much money. And it also didn't align with the values of MIT faculty. At that time, many MIT faculty were already publishing their teaching materials online because they felt it made them better teachers in the classroom. So the committee said, I know, let's just give it away for free, all of it. Let's just give it away for free. And this was a bold idea and surprising to the president, but he liked it because he felt like it aligned with the mission of MIT to democratize knowledge and to leverage the power of the internet for distribution and to bring more people to solve problems that our whole society is facing. And so that's how it started. On April 4th, 2001, there was a press release introducing this bold idea to the world, and it's been going ever since. And that origin story, or the genesis story, as Steve Carson, the first president of the board of directors of the OpenCourseWare Consortium, called it, is really at the heart of what we do today. And I can't really overstate this. As staff, we talk about this in the hallways. We talk about it on Zoom. We talk about it in meetings. When small and large issues come up, we talk about like how the new initiative will align with the mission. All of my colleagues are extremely mission-driven. I'm sure that this mission is going to be a big part of our 25th celebration. So my strategy for you is to figure out what your origin story is and to talk about it when making critical decisions, large and small. Talk about it routinely and frequently, don't save it for board meetings, talk about it all the time with your friends and colleagues, and do this across modalities and settings. Lean on it as a touchstone. So my question for you now, which I welcome you to jot down on paper or on the Padlet, especially on the Padlet so people can learn from you, is what is your genesis story of open? Personally or organizationally? And how does it drive you? How might you amplify your open story, and how might you lean on it in new ways? And how might you share it with others in maybe ways you haven't thought of? Take a little time. I'll keep my eye on the Padlet, which hopefully you can see on the screen. And we'll see what ideas come. I'm hearing some typing, or you're just writing emails. We'll see. Okay. Well, I encourage you to think about this and to talk about it with your colleagues and to maybe talk about it in the hallway here. Oh, we have an idea. Okay. Wow, a former incarcerated student receives his master's in social work. That is a powerful origin story. And it's going to connect with something I'm going to talk about later, which is learner stories. Wow. Thank you. Oh, we begin buying texts for students. Oh my gosh, there's so many ideas. I think I have to switch to this guy. Okay. This conference is how I got started with Open. Through the years, I've been able to go from learner to leader. Someone take a photo of that for future grants for why this is important. I was an adult student at a community college and sold my textbooks. Let me switch the view so maybe we can see this better. Okay. Working as an AmeriCorps participant in a democratic community-based education nonprofit, I saw the democratization of information in action in a way I never had before. When I eventually moved into higher education, in the higher education classroom, I couldn't see textbooks and learning materials the same way. These are amazing. I encourage you to keep them coming. The Padlet will be open, so you can come back to these and get inspiration from the people in this room. The second strategy I want to share is to work as a team. This one sounds really, really simple and basic. I told you, none of these are earth-shattering. But it's true, we never swim alone. Like, before you send that email out to a funder, maybe have someone else look at it. Like, it's that level, right? This is an important member of my team. This was my daughter when she was about 2 months old. You can see her doing some OCW outreach on her shirt. She was actually an OCW baby, born during my second year on the job. And so she's 10 now, or almost 10. And so she's grown up just like immersed in open education. And I think she thinks that's all the kind of education there is, which is like a wonderful world to live in for as long as she can. But in all seriousness, though, I have 23 adult colleagues who turn the crank of open education at OpenCourseWare alongside of me. And if you're at all interested in our work processes, like how you might do this at your institution, then the next slide might be useful to you, but maybe a little bit less adorable than this. So roughly 2/3 of the team is involved in day-to-day publications, and 1/3 of the staff does planning and managerial work. But how do we actually get these gears moving together? Well, our project administration team manages the workflows and processes, and then the course authoring teams work with MIT faculty to take their course materials off Canvas, to openly license them, and to actually make the websites that you see when you go to our site. The video production team captures classroom lectures, processes videos, edits them, and manages our YouTube channel. And this one's really important. Our intellectual property team helps ensure compliance with copyright law, which is really important if you're doing open work. And then the collaborations team that I'm a part of, we take the publications and we take them out into the world, and we collaborate with the open education global ecosystem to promote open praxis. And finally, the resource development team finds donors to fund this kind of work, because as we noted, it's not free. So the roles we play are important, obviously, but it's more how we function as a team. In our work environment, we're constantly laughing together, trying to be creative together. If you don't already have an emotional support dumpster fire crocheted figurine for your office, just maybe stop listening and go to Amazon right now and go ahead and get that. I will understand. And the Mandalorian pointed to this too. We really bring our whole personalities to work, and we infuse all of our interactions and our physical space with who we are. And we foster professional friendships that help us keep this work going. That's really important because it can be quite arduous. So I'm curious from you, who is your team? How do you function together in complementary ways to further your own open initiatives? And how do you lean on each other? And importantly, how might you strengthen those relationships in ways that you might not be expecting? And if you're a team of one, what can you do like today at this conference to begin building a network that can support you in doing the hard transformational work? So just take a minute, drop your thoughts in. My immediate colleagues in person, but also my colleagues across the field and TESOL, so teaching English as a second language, in terms of sharing and using resources. Okay, so that's your team. Wonderful. Okay. Team includes library, instructional designers, and faculty working together. I mean, wherever you are lucky. That's a lot of support. Yeah. Librarians, librarians, librarians. Yes. I'm a huge fan. Librarians unlock the key. They're the holders of the key, to knowledge. Seriously, we have an ad hoc group of interested librarians in collections, instruction, and course reserves. What team? Team, what team? Yeah, so you might use this as an opportunity. I'm a team of one, but I'm working with other teams of one at sister organizations through peer review. That's a great idea. All right, keep those ideas coming. We're going to come back to this at the end. So thank you to everyone who's dropping ideas in. The third strategy I want to share is staying agile. Like, this one is the one you have to kind of work up for. This is a big ask. But we know that we can't remain the same. At OCW, we know that we have to continually respond to changing learner needs. So for example, over the past decades, we've responded to learners' desire for more video. So we've amped up our video production a lot. We've also developed a mirror drive program so we can share knowledge openly with people in low to no internet spaces. There are 400 mirror drives out there in the world now, including one on a Navy ship out at sea. In 2013, for educators, instructional designers, and librarians, we began publishing instructor insights. And that's actually why I came to OpenCourseWare. My job initially was to interview faculty about how they had taught on campus with the materials that they published on OpenCourseWare, so people could see the how, not only the what, and people could build on that and change it, but to make the pedagogy also open and transparent and openly licensed, which was interesting. And then in 2020, as Roxanne noted, we started the Chalk Radio podcast to help learners feel like they weren't alone learning, that they were with us in conversation. And this is me back in 2021 editing one of the first Chalk Radio episodes by hand with scissors. We didn't know how to do it, right? Staying agile is hard and can be labor intensive, but we knew we had to do something to stay relevant and useful for our learners, and we figured it out. And now I don't edit the episodes with scissors anymore. Now we have a set, we often do video, and now we reach thousands of viewers through YouTube, and this means that we can share our open educational resources more widely, which is really the point. In 2023, we kind of flexed our agility muscles again, and we began to develop new collaborations across the ecosystem. And this photo comes from a collaboration with community colleges in California and Arizona. And together we ran a pilot program to support faculty in exploring and adapting content from MIT OpenCourseWare into their teaching. I would like to confirm for you, if you don't already know, that community college faculty are excellent at leveraging open education and open practice to democratize knowledge. Just show of hands, does anyone know of anyone who works at a community college or work at one yourself? Yes, can we just give them like a brief applause? Thank you. Yes, big shout out. Of course, no conference would be complete without the mention of AI. So being agile means being responsive to emerging technologies. In 2024, we launched the AI and Open Education Initiative, where we brought authors from around the world together to explore this nexus of AI and open education, something that we're all thinking about now. And they wrote rapid response papers on that, and we published them. And since then, we've been engaging a community of practice in exploring what this means for all of us doing this work in this context. And finally, the last innovation I'll share with you is that MIT OpenCourseWare is now part of MIT Learn, which is now the one destination for all lifelong learning opportunities at MIT. And MIT Learn is AI-enabled to support learners in finding the right learning materials and summarizing course content and helping with knowledge checks. I'm sharing it with you because it represents our latest attempt to remain agile. Remaining agile is scary and exciting and invigorating, and we find that creativity makes us feel alive as humans, at least on my team, and this helps us sustain our commitment to doing open. So your turn. This one I'm super curious about. How have you remained agile? And how can staying agile fuel your imagination and thus your ability to sustain your commitment to open? And this is the one I really want to hear. What would it look like to do something radically different or radically expansive? And who would you need to help you? Give you one second. What are your big ideas? Oh yeah, I'd need to feel safe failing, not risk student learning quality or my job. Yes. Not being afraid to experiment and try new things, being okay with it not going as expected the first time. Yeah, I love the idea of positioning audacious ideas as pilots that can often help your colleagues embrace the idea, or as prototypes. Keep learners at the center, encouraging more faculty involvement with support of the OER team. I would need buy-in from the administration. Yes. Yes, institutional support at all levels would help with agility. Yep, and to that I would add, it's always best when these ideas originate with the people who are going to implement them. It's much harder at times with top-down ideas. So I encourage you to take that risk and think about ways that you can be agile. Okay, this is the one I think that we're all gonna love, because you've mentioned it several times. So the fourth strategy that we leverage frequently is to look to learners for inspiration. So when our team needs energy, we often turn to learner stories specifically to fortify us. Stories like the ones I shared at the beginning, and also like this story about Frisia Gall, who I'll quote from an article written about her, built a VR prototype thanks to MIT OpenCourseWare's classes that provided a solid foundation of knowledge and problem-solving abilities. She wants to help others unleash their creativity to enjoy the expansiveness of their minds. Like, I just want to savor that last phrase. Her whole purpose is to help people enjoy the expansiveness of their minds. Like, that is an origin story I can get behind. That's a mission I like. So we share learner stories everywhere, like on our internal Slack channel, in emails to each other, on the wall, like I showed you at the beginning. We're just constantly sharing what upholds us. We love learner stories so much that we did a special season of Chalk Radio where we handed over the microphone to two OCW learners, one from Memphis, Tennessee, and one from Kampala, Uganda, and they interviewed learners from all over the world leveraging open education. And it was just great to hear their voices. We like this so much because it's personally gratifying, sure, but it's also our only window into impact. At OCW, we don't have any registration, so the only way we know the impact that we're having is to hear directly from learners. And understanding impact can help us keep going because we feel like what we're doing matters. We amplify these stories in multiple ways. We share them in our newsletter to inspire other learners, and we share them through YouTube Shorts to inspire other learners. And if you don't mind, I'd like to share with you just a short learner story. It's really fun. And also, all the technology is probably about to fail, so just bear with me. And also, that's because of me and the effect I have on technology, not the people in the booth who are doing such a good job.
I'm Maria Barbosa. I live in São Paulo, Brazil, where I go to medical school. I started using OCW when I was 15, I guess. So I googled like calculus introductory course, which led me to Professor Gilbert Strang Calculus Big Picture, which is probably to this day like my favorite class ever, any subject. But I also found out that learning was something that could bring me joy and really enrich my life. OCW allowed me to gain a more solid grasp on the basic sciences, which is so useful for me nowadays. It enriches so much of my experience, and this is so much fun because you can learn from basically everyone, and that keeps enriching my life and bringing me a lot of joy.
Thank you for letting me show you that. I don't know if anyone noticed the Star Wars theme? Maybe? Yes. My team is a little bit obsessed. And so it's also an example of how we have fun and bring our personalities into the work. Okay, I'm so curious now how you tap into learner stories. What energy do they catalyze for you? Specifically, how do you collect them? This is what your colleagues might like to know. And how do you share them with the people working alongside of you? And more importantly, not more importantly, I take that back. Delete that. Just as importantly, with your administrators and with funders who have the power to keep this work going. Add your ideas. Let's see. Oh, they're already coming up. I share success and impact stories immediately and anonymously with my team and manager. At team meets or even in an email. Don't sit on them, or they can be forgotten in the busyness of life. Yes. 100%. It's interesting to think about how to share them more like widely, like even beyond your team. Curious if anyone does that. Share but don't dwell. The next success story is greater than the last one. Interesting. And also, I would add that sharing learner stories also comes with some labor. Often you need to do some intellectual property or media clearances to get permissions to share learner stories, even if anonymously. So, I see the hard work you're doing. I include success stories with other students through a program-specific newsletter. Cool. We have a regional field newsletter. We sometimes share stories. Yeah. This is great. Keep the ideas coming. I'm sure we'll come back to these. Okay, the last strategy is probably the most important one, and that's to stay connected to the open community. To keep our efforts going at OpenCourseWare, we began the collaborations program in 2023, as I mentioned. And this is a team of 3 people, myself, my colleague Shira Siegel, who many of you probably know and love. She's a great connector, and our coordinator, Amy Tabor. The collaborations team formed in response to the fact that in 2001 and beyond, OpenCourseWare was focused on its very specific mandate to produce open educational resources, to share the teaching materials of MIT. And so we were sort of like heads down. And then about, in 2023, we looked up and we're like, whoa, the open education community is just blooming and doing all these fascinating things. So let's reconnect. Let's learn from them. Let's support the community in ways that make sense. And let's get inspired by them. And now we've connected with organizations like the community colleges I mentioned before, HBCUs, university faculty in Nigeria, the Open Education Network based out of University of Minnesota, CCCOER, which is the Community College Consortium for Open Education Resources, a community called Linux Dominicana, which is really cool, the AI and open education researchers I mentioned, and the one closest to my heart right now are OER librarians in Ukraine, who are literally using open education to rebuild society once the war is over. It's a real honor to work with them. We've found that being together in person bolsters our commitment because it helps us feel curious, alive, and helps us keep the focus on learner stories. This photo here is from an event we did in Minneapolis. It was a hub event for AI researchers and open leaders from the Open Education Network, and we went to the Walker Art Center because we were like, how can we have a human experience, unmediated by the digital screen, unmediated by AI? How can we get to know each other? And so we started at the art museum, we engaged with each other, and then we had a really productive dinner where we focused on the main issues in our field. So I highly recommend human-centered events to connect with your colleagues. This photo is of two community college faculty at an event that we held at a makerspace in Phoenix, Arizona. And I love this bag that they printed themselves at the makerspace. It says, "Go far together." And that's exactly what we try to do through our collaborations program. I have a few suggestions to jumpstart your collaborations, and I can't wait to hear yours as well. The first is just to reach out to Shira and myself. Our email address is at the top. We read all of these emails. We love to work with librarians. We love to work with individual faculty. We do a lot of curation work because OpenCourseWare can be challenging to navigate. There's just a lot of materials, so we can do that for you if that's helpful. I also highly recommend joining the Open Education Network as an institution. They have a great colleague connector program, and obviously the open textbook library is available to everyone. I recommend Doers, which can help statewide systems implement their open initiatives, and the new Open Education Association, which got started in 2025, and that is for individual members, which is super interesting. Because instead of joining as an institution, you're an individual member, so you can bring your own personal views. And you don't have to be a representative of your institution in that setting. Interesting move. I also invite you to attend the OE Global Conference in 2026. It will be held in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and online. The call for proposals closes today, so I would love to see some proposals about your work. And I will be there in person, and I would love to welcome you there. And lastly, tomorrow, you can join the OpenCourseWare 2025 celebration. It will be offered online. We'll be having a symposium that will forefront learner stories and where we're going in the future. So I'd love to welcome you there too. So my last question for you is, who in our community do you lean on for support? Who might you reach out to for a conversation? How could you support them? How can you keep learner stories at the center of these conversations? And what's one thing that you'll do before leaving this conference to strengthen your connection with the open education community? Oh, wow, look at you. You're already doing it. I didn't even finish reading. All right. Interdisciplinary. See what other fields are doing to take inspiration from a new perspective. Oh, this is super interesting to me, especially when we think of the opens writ large, like open data, open science, open access. That can be really inspiring. conducting my first peer review of an OER textbook, and then in the fall, I begin working on my first course based for open source materials. Wonderful. Okay, this is great. Keep them coming. I'm going to move us along because we're not holograms yet, although I'm sure we will be in 20 years, and you have human bodies and you're probably wanting to move around. So I'm going to share one last user story with you. This one is from Chaitali, a college student in South India. Chaitali wrote to me personally saying this: I've recently started using the MIT OpenCourseWare series to build a stronger foundation for my econ courses. It's so amazing to have access to such brilliantly explained course material. I just wanted to say how grateful I am for what you and your colleagues are doing. It's really making a difference to my education. So getting this message and understanding the impact that Open was having on Chaitali's educational experience made me so happy, and I immediately shared this with all my colleagues. She also is using her broad knowledge to create content that seeks to educate her peers about environmental issues at the college where she is attending. And you can see a screenshot from a film that she's made on this topic behind me. She's making a difference in the world, and OER are a part of that journey. And this user story is particularly meaningful for me because Chaitali is my niece. And this bit of feedback that she sent me, it just made my heart burst because the transformational work that all of you are doing every day has literally hit home. So thank you. And her message reminds me of the 5 strategies. It reminds me of what drives me to do this work, to help people like Chaitali make a difference in her own life and others. Drives home the importance of working as a team. Like my colleague somehow got this content to a college student in India by working as a team. And the importance of staying agile, it really excites me to think about what kind of content Chaitali might need next, right, to make a difference in the world. Speaks to the power of user stories. Like I mentioned, I wanted to share this with everybody and all of you because it really uplifts me. And it speaks to the power of connection and learning and leaning on a community. Chaitali is really leaning on all of you to continue to turn the crank of open education behind the scenes so that she can keep learning. So again, thank you for doing this and for all that you do. I'm going to pause now and turn the mic over to you. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have about OpenCourseWare or MIT Open Learning, but I also encourage you to look at the Padlet and to ask each other questions. If there's something that someone posted that you want to know a little bit more about, now's a great time to find out. If you are looking for a connection with someone, like I need to connect with an instructional designer at a state university, now would be a good time to announce that and to find someone in this room. So I'll just pause and take some time to learn from you. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah, for your keynote today. Please join me in thanking Sarah. Sarah, I'll start with a question for you. On your podcast, on Chalk Radio, think about guests you had on it, and who was the most thought-provoking or provocative in their testimonials or in their feedback of using Open? What really sort of like opened your eyes?
Oh my gosh, there are so many, but one that stands out was a very early one we did. It featured Mary Rowe, who is in management, and she had put her course for graduate students on MIT OpenCourseWare, a negotiations course. And we also featured Elizabeth Seiler, who is a professor of business at Worcester State University. And Elizabeth had taken these graduate level course materials and adapted them for her undergraduate students and had given them all new life and was teaching with them. And they had this great conversation together like OER sharer and OER adapter. And it was just fascinating to listen to. And I wish we could do that more often. I wish we could bring those stories together. I also had a super fascinating conversation with Rebecca Sachs. She's in brain and cognitive development, and she's a big proponent of open data and open science. And she was talking about how to make science more replicable, how to share more easily, and just the importance of that in democratizing knowledge. So I recommend checking that one out. And also the ones focused on learners with Emmanuel Kazagazi and Michael, they talked about how it is not always safe to learn out in the open in different communities. Michael talked about how he grew up in a community where being intellectual was not highly valued, and so he had to go against the grain to engage in this kind of work. And he wanted to create a safe space for other people to share how they navigated their learning journeys in that context. And that was something I hadn't thought about deeply before. Just open is not always easy on several fronts. Yeah.
Thank you. If anyone else has questions, please approach a mic. I'm also happy to bring it around.
Hello, I'm Marty from Learning Technology Services here at Stout. I have a quick question about if you have, or if somebody's interested in creating OER, but they're nervous to get started, what kind of advice would you give somebody that is looking to do that but is not sure where to get going?
Mm-hmm. I would say reach out to your librarian. They're often a great starting point. I would also recommend beginning with adaptation. So adapting existing textbooks to better meet the needs of your particular students in your context. That can mean translation, that can mean changing examples to things that are relevant to your community. Start small. It doesn't have to be huge, right? Any contribution you make is going to help a learner feel like the learning is more relevant to them. I'm thinking I also work for College of the Canyons in California on their OER team, and they have a program where we help faculty create open textbooks. And that work is very much from the ground up, and it often starts with a conversation with faculty, or if you're the faculty who want to do this, about what can I adapt? Can you point me to sources that I can adapt? Can you explain the licensure? What can I do? What can't I do? And then going from there. So just start with your smallest question.
Hi, I'm Ukrainian American. I teach at a local technical college here. And I am just curious to hear more about that collaboration, OER collaboration that you mentioned that you currently have with your Ukrainian counterparts. Thank you.
Thank you. And could you please come find me after this? Because I'm looking for someone who can translate technical textbooks. And you might be my person. Yes. So it started, there's an organization called Spark Europe, and they had an existing collaboration with OER librarians in Ukraine, and they were focused on spotlighting these stories because the librarians there just don't want people to forget what is happening. Even if we can't do a project, even if we can't get to a deliverable, they want to know that they are not forgotten, that the world has not forgotten. And so then we were like, well, like we have a lot of textbooks. Like, might you want to translate some of those, and would that be useful? And they said yes, because they said that many of their professors were now fighting on the front lines, and they needed cutting-edge textbooks. And so we worked together to identify the textbooks that would be of interest to these different universities. And now I'm seeking funding So if anyone knows any funders, please come find me as well, to fund the work of translation. And that involves two parts. We'll be using AI-enabled translation. We have an open source program with a glossary, which will help. But we need a human in the loop to audit the texts. So that's what I'm currently working on. And it's such a small project, like we might get 1 or 2 textbooks out of this pilot, but it feels really meaningful because it's doing something real in the world. Yeah.
So you mentioned kind of open source AI, and I think that's a question that I have is when we think about the past, you know, textbooks, there were costs to them, and there was the access issue, and we were trying to give those to students so that we could have some equity and access to those things. And it seems like the frontier now is AI models to help students with the learning process, but there seems to be some bottlenecks in terms of good models that might be trustworthy open source models. Do you think that's where kind of OER might be headed in some way, as being able to give open source access to students?
I mean, I think trust is going to be a huge issue going forward. I think we'll rely more heavily on RAG systems, homegrown AI. So like you might go to MIT and use their AI to create OER, and you might feel fairly confident that you can trust that content because it's been vetted by humans. I think we'll be increasingly faced with needing to discern what is trustworthy and what is not. And I think the community will begin to coalesce on its like favored AI pathways and AI sources for creating OER. And I think we're always going to need humans in the loop to do the checking and do the adapting. Yeah, but then the flip side of that, of course, is like, where is it scraping this data from? It's not attributing, you know, it's not saying like, I went to this article and it was licensed under a CC license, and oh, it's also share alike, right? Like, I don't think it understands the nuances of the licenses we use, so that is something to consider as well. It's not clear cut. Okay, well, if there's not anything else, thank you for listening to me. Thank you for sitting and giving me your attention, and thank you for inviting me to this conference. Have a wonderful day.